Do you find yourself feeling responsible for your adult child's choices? Maybe you worry constantly about their decisions. Maybe you feel like it's your job to fix their problems. Or maybe you've been trying to figure out how to help them, only to realize there's very little that you can actually control. I understand this because I struggled with this for a long time myself. As moms, we've spent years caring for our children, guiding them and helping them. So when they become adults, it can be really difficult to know where our responsibility ends and where theirs begins. In today's episode, we're talking about why we fall into this trap, and I'm sharing how you can get out of it, how to support your prodigal or semi-estranged child without taking on their responsibilities. Because if you don't get out of this trap, it will put a strain on your relationship. And loving your child and being responsible for your child are not the same thing. So if this is something you've struggled with, I think today's conversation is really going to encourage you. Grab your notebook and a pen, make your iced latte, and listen in. Hi friends, welcome to the Praying Moms of Estranged Children podcast. Are you struggling with strained relationships and losses that have shaken your faith and left you wondering where God is? If you long for peace, a deeper prayer life, and faith that holds steady, you're in the right place. I'm Sarah, a wife, mom of adult kids, and your Jesus-loving friend. Here you'll find encouragement to help you trust God and practical tools to pray with confidence as you walk closely with Him. So turn off your alarm clock, pour a strong latte, and find peace as you trust God with your children and your broken relationships. Hey friend, I know you're tired of worrying about your child. You're tired of wondering if they're ever going to come back to God. You're tired of carrying the weight of the relationship and wondering if reconciliation will ever happen. You're sick of lying awake at night, replaying conversations, questioning your decisions, and trying to figure out how to fix something that feels completely out of your control. You want to trust God, but if you're honest, that's easier said than done. You want peace, but the grief, fear, and uncertainty keep pulling you back into worry. I want you to stop carrying this burden by yourself. In a peaceful parenting session, we can walk through your situation together. We'll create a faith-centered plan that helps you release your worries to God, strengthen your prayer life, and begin moving forward with greater peace and greater confidence. You don't have to stay stuck in the same cycle of hurt. Go to bit.ly/faith and peace. That's bit.ly/faith and peace. And book your peaceful parenting session today. Let's start helping you find peace, even before your circumstances change. Okay, friends, let's dive in. What is the real problem with feeling responsible for our adult children's choices? Let's talk about it. I struggled for a long time feeling responsible for choices that my adult children were making. I felt like I had to solve their problems. In fact, I think a part of me wanted to solve their problems to make their lives easier, to save them from some of the hard lessons that I had to learn myself through the hardships that I've experienced. And I think there's a reason for that. For more than 20 years, I worked in educational leadership. So teachers depended on me to solve their problems, to create solutions, and to help them navigate really difficult situations. So that's what I did every day, all day long. And it makes sense that I carried some of that mindset into my parenting. I don't think I'm the only one, though. And I still fall into that trap sometimes of feeling like I have to solve my son's problems, even though they're now grown. I catch myself wanting to step in and take on responsibilities that squarely rest on my children's shoulders. But over time, I've gradually learned how to get better at letting go of their problems. Here's a truth I had to come to realize. Loving our kids and being responsible for their lives when they're adults are totally different things. As a mom, I think you can easily blur those lines without even realizing it, and that's the problem. So today I want to talk about and dive into 3 questions. Why do we fall into this trap? How do we get out of it? And how do we navigate supporting our kids without taking on their responsibilities? I think we have to start with why this happens in the first place. Why do we fall into this trap? Well, by the time our kids become adults, we've already invested so much of our time, our energy, and emotional effort into raising them, shaping them, and guiding them, that I think sometimes it's difficult to stop feeling responsible for them or what's happening in their lives. From helping them tie their shoes when they were 3 to reminding them to turn in their high school homework, we kind of trained ourselves over the years to notice what they needed and then to step in when they needed help. It becomes almost automatic. When they become adults, though, we know that responsibility is supposed to shift. But emotionally, that shift doesn't always happen for us as moms right away because we still care about our children. And when they struggle, it's hard for us to hold back. What's worse is we might even interpret their struggles as a reflection of our parenting. We can easily start thinking things like, if I had done something differently, maybe they wouldn't be drifting spiritually. And even though you might not be able to look at anything in your parenting experience and say, oh, that was really bad, I shouldn't have done that, you might still experience a feeling of shame because of the way your kids are living today. So we carry shame sometimes for things that we can't change, and we continue carrying responsibility for things that we can't control. But the truth is, our adult children are individuals with their own free will, making their own choices and living their own lives as it should be. Because we love them, we often still try to help. Sometimes we offer advice or solutions that aren't really even asked for, and that can unintentionally strain our relationship with them even more. Eventually, we come to realize that the life we envisioned for them might not be the life they want for themselves. I know for me, I went to college because that was something I valued and that was something I wanted to do. But my kids have chosen to take different paths. So I had to let go of my expectations in that regard because they wanted something different, and that's okay. We have to recognize the difference between what belongs to us and what belongs to them. So start by noticing when you're carrying emotional or practical responsibilities that aren't actually yours. Ask yourself, am I trying to solve a problem that my adult child is capable of solving himself? Or am I stepping into something that's not mine to carry? Is this my responsibility or is it truly theirs? That awareness, I think, is huge because it's the first step. Now, Galatians 6 verse 5 reminds us, each person should carry their own load. Your child has a load to carry and you have a load to carry. And when your child is an adult, God no longer intends for you to carry their responsibilities. So how do we get out of this trap? We have to separate love from responsibility, I think. Loving your child and being responsible for him or her once they're an adult are two different things. This has been a real stretch for me personally because I'm the type of person who likes to talk things through. I like to ask questions. I like to offer my perspective and try to help solve problems when I see them. And if you asked my children, they would tell you that sometimes all of my help is not as helpful as I expected it to be. I've learned that stepping in too quickly to fix things sometimes creates unintended consequences. And I've had a lot of regrets about that. When we jump in to solve our kids' problems, it just doesn't always go as we planned. Our kids might take our advice and end up with a much different outcome than we anticipated. And then we feel responsible because we were the givers of that advice. So over time, I've had to shift from being a fixer to being more of a supporter. The thing is, every time we step in to fix something that our adult child could navigate themselves, we're also unintentionally sending a message that isn't good for them. We're reinforcing the idea that we're responsible for their lives when they're adults. And over time, that can lead to a lot of frustration for both sides, both you and your child. Your child might become dependent on your input or even resentful that you're sharing your opinions when they don't really want to hear them. So we have to remember that our adult kids are their own people. They have the right to make their own decisions, even when those choices might be really painful or hard for us to watch. The flip side of this, though, brings a really freeing truth. Because we are not responsible for our adult child's choices, we also don't have to bear the responsibility of those decisions. They are the ones who will have to live with those outcomes, just like we had to live with ours. So we need to let them live their lives however they choose. What does this look like practically? Well, I think it means that you let them live their lives while you stay in your lane of love, prayer, and discerning support. And I don't know about you, but for me, sometimes it means I have to keep my mouth closed when I would otherwise really like to say something. Let's walk through some real life scenarios because I know some of you are thinking, but wait a minute, my daughter only calls me once a month. Shouldn't I encourage her to call me more often? Shouldn't I tell her how much I want her to do that? And this is really hard to hear, but I'm going to say probably not, because that will only create resentment. If you want to hear from her more, then you might need to be the one who initiates more contact, but you can't control her response. Let's say your son is dating a girl you don't approve of, and you're thinking, surely you should say something, right? Probably not. That is only going to cause problems in your relationship with your son. Of course, you can share wisdom if he asks for it, but ultimately, you have to let him come to his own conclusions about what kind of person he wants to be with and what kind of woman he wants to spend his life with. What if your adult child doesn't go to church anymore, even though you invite her every week, and you're wondering if you should stop inviting her? I would say if she's not accepting the invitation to go, then it might be more effective to step back and let your life speak louder than repeated invitations. Bring this matter to the Lord in prayer on a regular basis and trust Him to take care of it. You might be thinking, well, my child is about to do something dangerous or risky. Don't I need to step in? And this is kind of a trick question. When your child, no matter how old he or she is going to do something that's potentially harmful to themselves or to others, for your own conscience sake, you have to say something. If there's real danger, then yes, you need to speak up. But even then, you can do it with discernment, with a calm sense of clarity and the awareness that even then, you can't control the outcome. At the end of the day, our kids are responsible for the choices they make. Your responsibility for them shifted when they became adults. I can hear a lot of moms right now thinking, wait a minute, we still need to support our adult kids because they need our help. Let's break this down a little bit. Before stepping in to take over something that belongs to them, pause and ask, did they ask you for your help? Is somebody in danger? Or are you trying to reduce your own anxiety? Are you trying to step into a matter because you feel really uncomfortable about what's happening, even though it's totally safe? Sometimes we intervene because their choices are making us uncomfortable. And intervening in that case is totally different than helping. So how do we navigate supporting our kids without taking on their responsibilities? I think a helpful place to start is by asking yourself, what am I doing for my child that they're capable of doing for themselves? What problem am I trying to solve that actually belongs to them? And where am I stepping over across the boundary into areas of their life where my input hasn't been appreciated or hasn't been invited, or where my influence isn't welcomed or appreciated? I know these questions can be really uncomfortable to consider, but they're often where we find real clarity around boundaries, especially in our interactions with our prodigal or even semi-estranged children. Because many times, even when our intentions are good, our adult kids don't want direction. They don't want solutions. They just want a listening ear. And sometimes even loving advice can feel like pressure to them, which then can create more distance between us and them, which is not what we want. So our support has to look different when our kids become adults, because as moms, we're no longer managers of their lives. We have to instead become supporters, encouragers, listeners, prayer warriors, and ultimately we have to be strong, stable people for them to talk to when everything else in their world is uncertain. Part of navigating this shift is learning to distinguish what belongs to them and what belongs to us. They're responsible for their own decisions, how they spend their time, how they spend their money, the friends they choose to hang around with, and the results that follow all of those choices. So our responsibility shifts. It does not disappear, but it definitely changes. And our responsibility involves speaking up when something is truly going to harm them, or when their safety or well-being is at stake. And it also includes listening with an open ear, modeling Christ's love to them, and being a good example, offering them unconditional love. But outside of those things, we have to learn to release everything that we can't control. Instead of fixing, controlling, or offering advice that hasn't been asked for, we need to practice different behaviors. We need to listen more than we speak. We need to pray more than we pressure. We need to encourage them when it's welcomed. We need to ask permission before offering our input. And we need to trust God with what we can't change. We love them, we pray for them, and we trust God with the parts of their story that are not ours to carry. Now, after listening to this episode, you might be realizing how often you've carried responsibility for problems that really belong to your child that aren't actually yours to solve. And if that's you, I want to leave you with a few simple takeaways that you can begin practicing this week to help you step back from feeling like you need to solve your child's problems. The first takeaway is what I call the responsibility check. Whenever you feel a surge of worry or urgency flood your mind, pause and ask yourself, is this my responsibility or my child's responsibility, or is it God's responsibility? If it's truly your responsibility, then you know what to do. If it's your child's, leave it up to them. And if it's something only God can handle, then bring it to the foot of the cross in prayer and surrender it to God, because He is the only one who can solve that problem. The second takeaway is to pause before offering help or advice. Before you step in or to fix or to suggest something to your child about something going on in their life, just pause for a moment and ask yourself, did they request your help or your advice, or are you just stepping in to try to calm your own anxiety? So often I find myself wanting to extend help when it wasn't asked for, and in those moments I have to pause and ask myself whether that's what they really wanted. Most of the time I find that my kids simply want me to listen. The third takeaway is to replace fixing with prayer. Every time you feel the urge to solve your child's problem, stop and pray for your child instead. Ask the Lord to step in and to help guide your child, and then release your worry to God. Before we close, I want you to know that releasing responsibility is not abandoning your child. Letting go of control is not giving up on them. And trusting God with your child is not loving them any less. It's simply learning to love your children in a way that's healthy for them and for you. And as you begin to release problems that you aren't meant to carry, you will start to find a deeper peace in trusting God with your child and with whatever happens next in their life. Hey friend, do you want to join a community of Christian women who are praying for their prodigal or estranged children, just like you are? Inside my Facebook group, Praying Moms of Estranged and Prodigal Adult Children, you'll get prayer tools and scripture-based encouragement to help you trust God with your adult children. Join now at https://bit.ly/prayingmom. Hey, I hope today's episode inspired you. If so, would you click the follow button for the show and share it with someone who wants to learn more about trusting God? Also, please take 30 seconds to leave me a quick review of the show on Apple Podcasts. It means so much to me to know this podcast is encouraging you. Set your alarm to wake up to Jesus in your mocha and meet me here every Tuesday for a new episode. See you soon.